Good morning, folks. Welcome to another weekly update. It's Wednesday, the 3rd of June today. Easy for me to remember as it's actually my dad's birthday today. So a big happy birthday to you, Dad. We'll see you a bit later on today. I'll definitely not mention your age, but don't be trying to blow out all those candles on your own. You'll probably pass out or something. So let's have a quick look at the news then this morning. And remarkably, for the first time since I started doing all these videos during the lockdown, the coronavirus is not the main headline anymore. And in one sense, that's a great thing because it obviously means that cases are dropping and deaths are declining more and more and so on. But sadly, there's a much less joyful reason why this is the case, and that's really because our headlines are taken up by stories of racism across America. Ever since the death of George Floyd last week at the hands of police officers in Minneapolis, huge numbers of people have been out protesting against police brutality and all kinds of racism all over the United States. Mostly the protests have been peaceful and powerful, but there have been a number that we've seen in the news of more violent clashes, rioting, looting, even burning buildings have been reported. And it's all just so sad that this kind of thing is happening in our world today. We live in times when, in theory, we've supposedly moved forwards in our thinking. We've seen how destructive division and hatred can be in the past, and we're supposed to have learned those lessons and corrected those mistakes. But really, it seems that battle is not yet over. In fact, not even close. Racism seems to be so prevalent in our society. So here in the UK, there's all kinds of clashes over race and ethnicity. We saw a lot of that coming out during the Brexit campaign that was ran. Videos often emerge on social media of people abusing other people simply because of their race, whether it's on buses or in shops or wherever. And the chief example is in football, actually. We've seen recently a lot of black professional footballers sharing stories of how they have experienced and continue to experience racism on a regular basis, even at Premier League football matches. And it's outrageous. The scenes we're seeing in America are just awful. America claims to be this kind of beacon or home of liberty and freedom and justice for all and all this sort of stuff. And yet it seems that a huge number of its population feel targeted, belittled, looked down upon, abused, and many of them are even afraid because of the colour of their skin or their ethnic origin. And the question really is, will this ever stop? Will this ever change? It's a travesty that we see so much of this hatred in our world. And really, for me, the answer is found in the Bible, and specifically it's found in Jesus Christ. Because the Bible teaches that as we put our faith in Jesus, we're adopted into God's family. We are brothers and sisters in Christ, and we are therefore one, totally equal, totally united, totally joined together. And Paul says the most amazing thing in his letter to the Galatians, chapter 3. He says, "So in Christ Jesus, you're all children of God through faith. For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ." And he says, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise." Amazing words. There's neither Jew nor Gentile, neither male nor female. That stuff is no longer relevant to our standing before the Lord, to our standing even with one another. We are brothers and sisters, full stop. And Jesus spent his earthly ministry showing and reflecting the love of God for all people. He constantly challenged the religious leaders who were alienating people and trying to cause barriers for non-Jews to come to God. He constantly sought out people who were being marginalized in society and really being made to feel like they were somehow lesser than others, whether it was tax collectors, lepers, prostitutes, the disabled, the poor, the homeless. It didn't matter. Jesus went towards these people because to him, they were all neighbors, they were all his family, and they were all worth dying on the cross for. And in one of his most famous parables, the story of the Good Samaritan, Jesus explains what is expected of a Christian when it comes to loving our neighbours. And he describes how a true loving neighbour is someone who can make sacrifices and show compassion and even risk his or her own life in order to help another. But the real challenge came as he identified who the people in the story were, because it wasn't two people who were similar, it wasn't two people who lived on the same street and hung out together already, it wasn't two people who were even of the same race or religion or ethnicity. It in fact was two enemies. See, the Jews and the Samaritans had 1,000-year-old hatred between them. So this animosity was traditional and historical, and it was totally embedded into their culture. But Jesus cut straight through that like it was nothing. He was saying whether you're a Jew or a Samaritan is irrelevant when it comes to God. He looks only at the heart, and we ought to do the same. Rather than looking at what makes us different, we ought to look at what makes us similar. And we ought to love one another and show compassion toward one another, even those that society may well teach us to dislike. Now, that's not to say that our racial identity doesn't mean anything at all. On the contrary, God has given us all national identities and languages and heritages and so on, and these ought to be celebrated and enjoyed. Wouldn't it be wonderful if that were the case throughout the world today? You know, the Bible doesn't make it 100% clear what heaven will be like, but we have some pictures to go on. And one picture that we're given is that heaven is this like cultural melting pot, a place where the diversity of the nations is very much present. And significantly, it's a place where this diversity does not produce fear, racism, and bigotry. Rather, it produces unity and harmony. How is that the case? Well, because Jesus Christ reigns there supremely. Listen to the words that we find in Revelation chapter 7. John writes this vision that he has of the life that is yet to come. He says, "After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb." That's Jesus. "They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands, and they cried out in a loud voice together, 'Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb.'" Amazing thought that is, that one day we will truly all be together, every tongue, tribe, and nation. In other news then this week, as far as coronavirus goes, things certainly seem to be improving all the time. Northern Ireland recorded 2 deaths and only 4 new cases in the last 24-hour reporting period, which is definitely a marker of the progress being made. Of course, though, those 2 people are still people. It's not just numbers on a sheet, and our sympathies do go out to the families of those 2 who died, whoever they are, wherever they're from. But clearly lockdown has been working to a degree, and we're now seeing the benefits of all the restrictions we had for so many weeks, even though they were difficult. And that's why some lockdown measures are still in place and will remain in place for the foreseeable future, it seems. We have to wait and see when we might be allowed maybe inside the houses of our immediate family or close friends. But until then, thankfully the weather has been great recently, and it's allowed us to spend time with people out in our gardens or meet up with people out in public places. Social distancing is certainly one thing that's going to remain in place for quite some time. People being encouraged to keep that 2-meter distance as much as possible. And as sad as this is, we need to just accept it for a temporary period. It's not forever. It will end one day, but it's keeping people safe for now and ultimately contributing to saving lives. And a lot of people are getting frustrated, though, it seems, and we've seen a few instances of people in Northern Ireland ignoring the rules, breaking protocols. There have been some organised parties at various beaches, including Ballyholme and Helens Bay, mostly by young people, kind of teenage age, maybe pushing up into early 20s. And police have had to turn up on both those occasions, certainly to scatter the huge crowds of people who had gathered. And I believe a small number were detained and arrested for being violent towards police officers. Apparently one female police officer got kicked in the face in the process of this. And this could become a bit of a problem moving forwards as other hot days that come along on the horizon. We may see more and more of this kind of thing, and that might even have an encouraging influence on other people to do similar things. And the experts seem to suggest that a second spread could happen if we're not careful. We've even seen in the Premier League football, for example, teams are starting to train together again, and that means close contact between one another, and they're doing their best to have this kind of social distancing in place, but it's not perfect. And so each time the experts do another round of testing, it shows that more and more people test positive. Now, thankfully, the numbers have been small, but it's a reminder that the virus is still out there. There is still a danger. Doesn't matter of our age, doesn't matter of our health. I mean, these Premier League footballers are healthy, fit, strong people, and they're still susceptible to this. So the message coming from our government is still very much, we must not get complacent. So there you have it, folks. It's mostly good, positive news regarding the coronavirus, especially within Northern Ireland. Life is beginning to head back to some kind of normality, but we've got to be patient. We must not become complacent. We've got to keep staying safe, keep staying alert. And I wanted to simply finish this morning by reading from Psalm 118. And this is a psalm of thanksgiving. We want to use these words to thank the Lord for his provision over us in our lives. The psalmist says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Let those who fear the Lord say his love endures forever. When hard pressed, I cried to the Lord. He brought me into a spacious place. The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? The Lord is with me. He is my helper. I look in triumph on my enemies." It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in humans. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. The Lord's right hand has done mighty things. The Lord's right hand is lifted high. The Lord's right hand has done mighty things. I will not die, but live, and will proclaim what the Lord has done. Open for me the gates of the righteous. I will enter and give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord through which the righteous may enter. I will give you thanks, for you answered me. You have become my salvation. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this. You are my God, and I will praise you. You are my God, and I will exalt you. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Folks, that's us for today. I will not be doing a video on Romans this afternoon, but tomorrow I will then post a video for 2 chapters. So please keep watching those and reading along with us each day. We're doing a chapter of Romans each day this week and next as well. And of course, we'll be back on Sunday morning for our live service at 10:30. Whatever you do today, wherever you go, stay safe, and as ever, God bless.